And we just had some amazing PTFS updates recently. There's still lots of folks still not satisfied. So today I'm going to be rating 14 PTF suggestions in the PTC District server and rate them on a scale of 1 to 10. Look, when you have European international airports and fighters on the table, you better sit back, relax. I'm MrBullsFan, and let's get rolling with the first suggestion by Gnome14, saying he would like to see the Airbus A400M. So the A400M is a cargo transport plane designed to replace older planes in the category, like the C-130 Hercules. Its large fuselage, including the massive overhead wings with 4 propellers and the towering T-tail. Does someone need a large package mover to move between Airbase Gary and RAF Scranton? Well, here you go. Want a parachute from the back of the plane? You could. Or, for all my Tom Cruise fans out there, maybe hang out at the side of the plane. However, the Airbus A400M falls into an issue I keep pressing on every single time I do one of these suggestion videos. It must be unique, and no other plane should be somewhat similar to it. And while the A400M and C-130 have some similarities, the good thing with the A400M though is that the tails between the two are very different, and it's more modern in design for the 2020s compared to the ancient C-130. To follow that in mind, the Airbus A400M suggestion clocks in at an 8 out of 10. Picking up the C-130, or let me say AC-130, because Origin really wants to fire the 40mm Gatling guns on the side of the plane. Now, theoretically speaking, the guns will probably have no PvP capability to stay in line with the dev's request, but just like the flares in game with no purpose but for visuals, there's something to consider. Oh, and did I forget to mention the A-10 Warthog and its... yeah, it's totally possible. 9 out of 10. Next up is Obama Boss Gaming, which definitely took that AI stuff to a username, but he suggested Airport Twente in the Netherlands. Now this is one of those obscure airports to talk about, so let me go ahead and explain. Though today it's mostly used for general aviation, it used to be a vital military base and as a commercial airport. You see, after World War II, the aerodrome was used for both civil and military purposes. So while KLM flew from Amsterdam, aircraft like the F-86 Sabre and the F-16 Falcon were stationed here. Even during COVID as well, Lufthansa stationed their 747s here during the downturn. Now, if implemented into the game, there's some potential for different uses. There's theoretically 3 runways on the actual Airport 20, and with this triple use between commercial, military, and general aviation, I can see something happen. With that in mind though, it isn't the most exciting thing in the world, and there are other better options for airports, so it's a 6 out of 10 for me. Our next one from Pan Stefan with the Fokker F-28 Fellowship. So the F-28 is one of those old regional jets during the 70s and 80s that have a lot of unique things about it. The fuselage design is highlighted by its T-tail, rear-mounted engines, and lower tail. Features like a retractable air brake then using reverse thrust also make the plane stand out. And while though it's an aircraft that certainly can separate itself from the rest of the PTFS catalog, it isn't the most exciting or recognizable aircraft. Especially with more known sub-variants like the Fokker 70 and 100, adding those would be a better bet if you want a Fokker commercial plane in PTFS. But again, we do need to see a Fokker commercial plane in game, so if this is it, fine, but I'm gonna go ahead and give this a 6 out of 10. Error Butter, which is totally how I landed PTFS, says to add more plane strobes and have them toggled on or off. I mean, look, I'm flying this Airbus A220 right now in game, and yeah, it's kind of a dark experience. If we were to add more strobes to the game, this would greatly enhance the night flight experience a lot. And then we also gotta talk about toggleable lights. Now that would be sick. More customization when role-playing would be cool indeed, and I'd love to see it. The question though is what would that keybind would be? That's, you know, something to consider. But as a concept and as an idea, let's roll with a 10 out of 10. The general aviation side for the edition of the series VisionJet has been quite neglected, so Chaos006 says that PTFS should add the Beechcraft Bonanza with the beautiful V-tail. The Bonanza within the GA space is the definition of legendary. With its reliable use, it has been a mainstay for decades, and there's a good reason why. Low wing plane, the single prop up front, and the after-mentioned V-tail. Like, if you want a plane that is unique to the moon, the Beech Bonanza is the one. But like all GA planes we talk about on this series, is that general aviation isn't the most hyped thing in the world. We all know that most of the community, not all because the GA fan base is absolutely crazy, but most of them only care about flying commercial or military. However, this narrative was pretty much demolished by the VisionJet. It was a very popular hit, so if you could put forward a solid GA product, it's worth it. So let's roll with a 7 out of 10. Rixie, sorry if I'm saying it all wrong, but wants to see Bhutan Airport added to the game. Bhutan Bakanzi Airport is a small regional airport based out of the Philippines on the southern island of Mindanao. Both services in and out of BXU are turboprop services to Cebu or Manila, so it isn't that large. There's one single runway with a terminal that has a pretty cool light blue roof that screams Bhutan Airport in much darker blue text. And that terminal building is something I can definitely see implemented. The building can be put in any type of scenario, even if it's not called Bhutan. If you were to move this airport to the desert or a tundra island in PTFS, the exterior works every single time. It's a cool concept that I'm open to see in games, so I'm gonna go ahead and give it an 8 out of 10. The next one is pretty cool. So Mac and Cheese wants to see water splash when you're flying real close to it. Let's just imagine it for just a second. The waves crashing into one another due to the afterburners of a military jet, that to me is a work of beauty. Now, how do we do this in PTFS? Honestly, I'm not sure. You see, the PTFS ocean is, well, to put it lightly, isn't that highly realistic. So either you have to change the ocean or use a particle like what we have with the Coast Guard boat or the walrus swimming. And to be honest, if implemented, that is probably what you're gonna do. I'm not sure how realistic it's gonna be though, so there's something to work with. So on that note, it'll be a 7 out of 10 for me just because of the uncertainty of making a solid product. I might be missing something though, but we'll see. We move on to Diesel Fox with the Augusta Westland AW139 helicopter with 4 liveries: Aeronautica Militaire, Irish Air Corps, VIP, and Air Ambulance. With the AW139's large propeller blades and another on its tail and the landing gear design, it's a pretty cool aircraft. There's a lot of customization you can implement with this heli as well. Features like a Coast Guard finch, searchlight, and night vision could definitely be added and raise the usage of the helicopter. Also, the AW139 is basically in a whole lot of stuff. Military use, firefighting, search and rescue, police patrolling the seas, VIP use, you know, it's a mosh pot of different uses. This is why the suggestion comes with 4 different liveries, 2 for military, 1 VIP, and the air ambulance. But you think that GA aircraft are neglected? No, PTFS helicopters are it. Adding the AW139 role would help in that regard, and though maybe the liveries, especially the air ambulance, would overlap with others in the game, I think it's a solid suggestion whatsoever. It's an 8 out of 10. The next suggestion is probably the best one in today's video, so whatever says PTFS should add the Russian aircraft carrier, the Admiral Kusanov. This cruiser is kind of a mix both of the USS Gerald Ford and HMS Queen Elizabeth in design. The Admiral Kusanov has that dual runway layout that the USS has, along with that central interior in the middle of the ship. The similarity with the HMS comes from that massive ramp at the end of the bow. However, the Kusanov carrier has that slightly less degree of the ramp steepness. I mean, look, why not? I would love to see a 3rd aircraft carrier in the game, and while yeah, we do have to raise how much Russian aircraft we have in PTFS to even make the carrier make sense to exist, it's a perfect suggestion. 10 out of 10. The Mega Knight would like to see the Comac C919 inside of PTFS, and with the mixed response with the reactions, I think it's worth taking a deep dive. The C919 is a brand new commercial plane developed by Chinese plane manufacturer Comac that recently had its first commercial flight a few weeks ago with launch customer China Eastern Airlines. PTFS, while at the moment anyway, would not add aircraft until it's shown track record of relevancy. This means if PTFS added a Comac C919 to the game, the real-life version should be fine for just a little while. If it isn't, just why? Also, using the blueprints.com, which is where Orange buys aircraft blueprints so he can build and develop them for game use, yeah, no, the C919 isn't even on the database. So there really isn't anything he can base off in game, which basically means it's not gonna happen. And I understand the positives of adding the C919. It's a different, unique plane, and it comes from the Eastern Hemisphere, which is lacked in the game's catalog. But if there's no feasible way to add it and it hasn't had a track record, yeah, 1 out of 10. Now if I were to rate this a year later after the C919 starts getting revenue and a lot more, then sure, I would consider giving it a higher score, but as of right now, in all scenarios, this ain't it. Phil Sagisi says that PTFS should add Milan Malpensa Airport, and only because he said please. Well, on that note, MXP has some unique things about it. It has 2 terminals which are actually separate from one another, a cargo section, and 2 runways which are split with this taxiway down the middle. Milan Malpensa also has some very modern exterior designs which Orange can base off of. But I'm kinda here on the fence. You see, you got 2 parallel runways running right next to each other, which kinda remind me of Greater Rockford, but again, the taxiway and the extra terminal distinguish it, so it gets so much complex. Also, no offense, I just don't think it's exciting as other international airports. I know it's just my opinion, and you're free to disagree with me all you want, but it's a 6 out of 10 for me. Now prepare your baguettes, macaroons, and ratatouille dishes, or bratwurst and sauerkraut, because we're talking something insane. Ascopa Trust has suggested to add the Alpha Jet to pilot training flight sim with 3 liveries. French, German, and a special Game Pass display team livery, Patrouille de France. Oi, oi, oi. I shouldn't be allowed to say that. The Alpha Jet is one of those legendary European fighters of the late 20th century. Dual developed by Dassault of France and Dornier of Germany, the aircraft was used for trainer and light aircraft missions for their respective air forces. Its sleek design with the thin fuselage and overhead wings with the engines really make it stand out within the crowd. And oh yeah, the Patrouille de France. Just like the Thunderbirds, Blue Angels, and Red Arrows, the PAF performs special aerobatic shows during air shows and major French holidays. With the livery skin, there would be red, white, and blue smoke to represent France's flag colors, and that same skin would be shown on the liveries. And those toggle numbers on the Blue Angels and Thunderbirds, add them on the PAF planes as well. Now yes, the Patrouille de France livery should be a Game Pass. I believe the main Alpha Jet should be free with the French and German and whatever Orange wants to add with it, but it's a more special plane that deserves some rarity in that regard. But all in all, it's a very lovely suggestion by Escalos, so I'm gonna go ahead and give it another perfect score, 10 out of possible 10. And our final suggestion comes from the Maverick himself, with shoot. Like, I couldn't get away from Spirit. I mean, it does remind me of this video.
I feel like Spirit is so cheap, they just tape a picture of clouds to the outside of the windows and drive you to your next location.
Just imagine that with a Concorde. Yeah, no, this is a 1 out of 10. Well, there you have it. There's all the PTF suggestions in today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please share, subscribe, video. But yeah, I'm done. I'm MrBullsFan, and as always, take flight. See ya!